Hi everyone, I'm Bia, and welcome back to Credit Graded for Teens. For those of you who don't know, Credit Graded for Teens is a place where teens can come together with other teens to learn about Spiritist teachings and topics in a way that makes more sense to us and is more relatable to us as teenagers in today's society. We've been reading through the Gospel according to Spiritism together, and we spent a long time in the introduction, which gave us a lot of background knowledge to help us understand the Gospel according to Spiritism. And recently we started within the chapters, and we started last week chapter 2, which is titled, "My Kingdom is Not of This World." And it's getting a phrase that was from Jesus, that Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." When people, when they asked him if he was the king of the Jewish people, he said, "My kingdom is not of this world." So no, he wasn't a king of this world, but of another world, right? He has his kingdom. And so there's been a lot of interpretation of that, and now Spiritism is getting that interpretation and explaining, like, the kingdom is not of this world because we know that there's the spiritual world, and we know that that's his kingdom. And that's what we left off talking about. And so this time we'll pick up the second section in the topic of "My Kingdom is Not of This World," which is the regality of Jesus. And regality is just a fancy word to mean like being the king or queen or something, like being royal. Can we all recognize that the kingdom of Jesus is not of this world? But could he not also have a kingdom on earth? The title of king does not always imply temporary authority. We give this title by ununanimous consent to anyone who, by their own talent, rises to the highest level of whatever idea, who dominates his time or influences human progress. In this way, we frequently use the expression the king or prince for philosophers, artists, poets, writers, etc. Does not this kind of royalty come from personal merit or having been consecrated by posterity, reveal in many cases a supremacy far greater than that which circles a royal crown? The first is imperishable, whereas the second is but a toy of vicissitudes. The generations that follow the first always bless them, whereas sometimes those who follow the second have cause to curse. The earthly one extinguishes with life, but the sovereignty of morality continues and maintains its reign, ruling above all after death. From this aspect, then, is not Jesus a mightier and more powerful king than all the sovereigns of the earth? It was with good reason when he said to Plato, "I am a king, but my kingdom is not of this world." So, what they're pointing out here is that when we have royal crowns, right, royal kings throughout history, these are just people that are in the bloodline, right? So it's like, okay, now the son is going to become the king, and then this person is going to become the queen, and it's all just by bloodline. So yeah, even if those people are great, they didn't really do anything to get into that position. They were just kind of put in that position, right? Because that's their bloodline. That's the way the order in the society goes. So they just kind of got put there. But what about the people we call like the king of philosophy, the king of art, of poetry, of writing? So of these topics, people who we consider royalty of these, of different areas, those people earned their way there, right? Because we know, like the king of music, or we can also say queen. We know at this time they were mostly thinking about king, but also the queen. So when you get a title such as like, oh, the king of pop, the king of music, the king of writing, something like that, those people earned it. You know that they worked very hard to get to the place that they are, and now everyone likes the things that they're doing. Everyone is influenced by it, and they had such a big impact that's why they're being called king. So if you're looking at it in terms of that, doesn't that have much greater value, right? Because they weren't just put in that place. No, they worked their way up and earned that and influenced all these people. And and worked hard to get that title. So the same thing happened with Jesus. Jesus kind of, we know that Jesus didn't have to work hard for that title, but Jesus got that title as like our king, even though he wasn't an actual king of like a country like we might think of originally, but he led and inspired and influenced so many people and touched so many people that he could be considered this king, right? Of that helped us influence, that was an enormous being in our transformation into better people. So in this sense, he's a king, but not of an actual like country or village or something like that. And then it says, with good reason, he said, I am a king, but my kingdom's not of this world. Because, yeah, he's a king. He's someone that's influencing the people, helping the people, guiding the people. But not only of this world, but in the spirit world, right? It's not like he has a set title. But in the way that they understood at the time, he said, yeah, I'm a king, and I help influence and spread and watch and help all these people. Then the next section of this is titled, A Point of View. The clear and precise idea that can be formed of a future life provides an unshakable faith in what is to come. This faith places enormous consequences upon the moralization of man, because it completely changes the point of view as to how life on earth is regarded. For those who place themselves by means of thought in the spiritual life, which is undefined, bodily life becomes a mere temporary stay in an ungrateful country. The vicissitudes and tribulations of this life become nothing more than incidents, which can be supported with patience, as they are known to be of short duration, and will be followed by a more amenable state. Death no longer has terror attached to it. It ceases to be a door opening on to nothingness, and becomes a door that opens to liberation, through which the exile enters into a well-blessed mansion, and there finds peace. Knowing that the place where we find ourselves at the moment is only temporary and not definite, makes us pay less attention to the preoccupations of life, resulting in less bitterness and a more peaceful spirit. So here they're going into explaining how having this different point of view, knowing about Spiritism and looking at life differently, makes life a lot easier to tackle. And like they said here, less bitter and more peaceful, because you can be at peace with things, and less bitter at things because you have a better understanding of how things work. They say when you understand that that there's more to life, right? That we shouldn't fear death because there's more to it after, right? We're going to continue learning and growing, and the things that are happening in our life are happening for a reason, and that our physical body is just kind of it's just our temporary clothes that we have for the time, but it's not going to be forever. When we know this and when we come more in tune with our spiritual life, it makes it a lot easier for us to find peace with the world, with ourselves, with everything that's happening. So it's very important, a simple switch in point of view, right, of being completely bitter in life, or to being more peaceful and understanding that there's more than just this physical life, can really make a drastic difference. And that's kind of the main thing they're showing, that we've talked a lot about, right? It really changes our look on life, because, and it relates to all of us in every little situation, because we may be looking at a little situation and think, oh my God, how is this happening to me? I'm never going to get through this. This is like literally the worst thing ever. And even though it might feel like that, because of Spiritism, we know that one, we have to learn from this, right? Whatever's coming, you have to learn. And two, there's always people to help us. Even if we seem no people, there's our guardian, our angels, right? Our mentor spirits that are there to help us. And we know that, okay, maybe we'll keep making mistakes, but it's okay. We'll have more chances to make those up. And when we make those up, then we got that task and we'll be able to move on to something else. So having that knowledge of Spiritism helps us go about life more peacefully, and that's why we're at an advantage. And oftentimes we forget when we're in our busy days. We forget about these things, and then we get worked up anyway. But we need to be brought back, right, to these thoughts that there's more to life than this situation that's going on right now. And we can get help, and the situation will pass, and we'll be okay. So Spiritism helps this point of view change. Then it continues. Simply by doubting the existence of a future life, man directs all his thought to earthly existences. Without any certainty of what is to come, he gives everything to the present, with the mistaken idea that there is nothing more precise than earthly things. Man behaves as a child who can see only his toys, and is prepared to go on any length to obtain the only possessions he judges to be solid. The loss of even the least of these causes pungent hurt, be it a mistake, a deception, an unsatisfied ambition, an injustice to which the person has fallen victim, hurt pride, or vanity. These are some of the torments that turn existences into an eternal agony, so in this manner, causing self-inflicted torture at every step. From the point of view of earthly life, in those centers we place ourselves, everything around us begins to assume vast proportions. Their harm that reaches us, as well as the good that touches others, takes on a great importance in our eyes. It is like the man who, when in the middle of a great city, sees everything on a large scale, but who, when looking down from a mountain top, sees things in only minute form. So again, they're really driving that fact that with our different point of view, which we're lucky enough to have with Spiritism, with this little change in point of view, we have the power to completely change how we go about our lives. Just by understanding Spiritism and remembering it, not just knowing it, not just reading it here, not just talking about it, but applying it to our lives. That's the important part. So once we apply it to our lives, we'll help ourselves get away from eternal agony and pride and vanity, because we'll be looking at the big picture. And we will know, just like they're saying here, like a man that isn't thinking about that is like a child that's only looking for toys, right? And when they get the toys, okay, they're happy. But if something happens to one of the toys, that seems like the end of the world. So we need to look beyond those toys, right? At the things that aren't material, at the things that mean more, are more sentimental. And yes, maybe one material thing does have sentiment to us because we're not perfect spirits yet. But we need to be okay with realizing that, okay, maybe I do really like this, but in the end, it is just a material thing. So what's really important? So it's very crazy to see that simply changing our point of views or using Spiritism to apply to our lives can really help us change our attitude towards life. Yet, a lot of us still don't do it. So it's really important for us to not only talk about it and read it here, but practice it in our daily lives. And then they continue. This is what happens when we look at life from the point of view of a future existence. Humanity, just as the stars in space, lose itself in the great immensity. We begin to see that great and small things are confounded, as ants on top of an anthill, that proletarians and potentates are the same stature. We laminate that so many short-lived creatures give themselves over so much labor in order to conquer a place that will do so little to elevate them, and which they will occupy for so short of space of time. From this it follows that the value given to earthly things is completely in reverse to that which comes from a firm belief in the future life. So here again, they're just kind of summing up that looking at things from a future life point of view, or as we call it, from a Spiritism point of view, that helps us to kind of get a better balance on what is important and what's not important, what we should be focusing on, what we shouldn't be focusing on, right? Like they're saying earthly things, we focus on material things, which is completely backwards. Right? We should focus less on material things and more on morals and virtues. So again, just summing up that we need to start paying attention more to the morals, because we do have this future life point of view, right? We're studying the Spirit book and the Gospel according to Spiritism together, and we're studying these Spiritist topics. So we need to get these and apply it to our lives, because we're being given the tools to look at life from that future point of view that they're telling us about. So we need to use it, right? Or else we're going to keep suffering. Then it continues. If everybody thought in that manner, it could be argued that everything on earth would be endangered, because no one would bother about anything. But mankind instinctively looks after its own well-being. So even if were known it was to be for only a short while, everyone would still do his or her best. There is no one who, when finding a thorn in their hand, will not take it out so as not to suffer. Well, then, the desire for comfort forces people to better all things, seeing that we are impelled by the instinct of progress and conservation, which are elements of the laws of nature. Therefore, humanity works not only through necessity, but because it wants to, and because of a sense of duty, so obeying the design of providence, which places all people on earth for that purpose. Only a person who occupies himself or herself more with the future can give relative importance to the present. These people are easily consoled into all of their failings and misfortunes by thinking of the destiny that awaits. So here they're taking a point of view that's saying that, okay, some people think that if everyone knew that there was more to life, if everyone knew that a future life, that there was more, people might not do anything because they know, oh, I'll just do it next time. You know how people are lazy and we procrastinate. So people may be like, oh, we'll do it next time, we'll do it next time. They won't bother to do anything because they know they have forever. But this is actually wrong, because instinctively, people, we want ourselves to be well, right? Everyone wants their own well-being. So instinctively, if something's wrong in your life, you're going to want to fix it, right? Like they're saying, if there's a thorn in your hand, you're going to take it out. Even if you have forever to take it out, you're going to take it out as soon as you can, because everyone wants their own well-being. And that goes back to the law of natures of progress and conservation, right? We want to conserve ourselves. That's our first instinct. And also to progress, we want to do better. So even if everyone is aware that, oh, there's more to life, there's a future life, people will still want to do things, because they'll still be bettering themselves, because they want to become better. They want better things. So they'll keep progressing, even if people know that there's more to life, right? There's more time for procrastination, yes, but there's also more time to get even better, right? To improve greatly. Then it continues. Accordingly, God does not condemn all earthly pleasures and possessions, but only condemns the abuse of these things in the detriment to the soul. All those who take these words of Jesus for themselves, "My kingdom is not of this world," are guarded against these abuses. Those who identify themselves with a future life are as a rich person who loses a small sum without emotion. Those whose thoughts are concentrated on earthly things are as the poor man who loses all he has, and becomes desperate. So of course it's saying here that God isn't going to condemn all of our earthly pleasures, because we're humans living on earth and we're not close to perfection yet. So clearly we're going to have material things that we like, right? Even if some people are really unmaterialistic, there's always that one or two things that they love, that they never want to lose, that they never want to get rid of, or things that they enjoy doing. So yeah, there's going to be earthly pleasures, because we're not perfect, right? We're going to have earthly pleasures, but that's fine as long as we're not abusing them, right? As long as we're not doing the negative earthly pleasures. Maybe, yeah, you love hanging out with your friends and doing this specific thing, which is fine, right? It's not like we have to just give up everything that they're saying, but to not abuse these earthly pleasures and make sure we're using the right ones, right? The good quality pleasures. And they're saying if we think my kingdom is not of this world, if we think of the bigger picture, it'll be easier to avoid those bad pleasures that we don't want to get into. And they're saying those who identify them with Spiritism and identify with this future life, and again, it doesn't even have to be Spiritism, but if someone has this idea of a future life, it'll be like a rich person, they lose a small amount of money, but that's fine because they're rich, so they don't really care about that little bit of money. But if you're only focused on earthly things, when you lose one little bit of money, that person becomes so desperate, right? Like a poor person who loses that little bit of money they have, they'll become so desperate. So that's why we need to have that outside point of view. So when we lose something, yeah, it might be like, oh, that's sad, I wish I didn't lose that, but we know it's not the end of the world. We know it's not anything to get desperate over it. And then it continues. Spiritism opens up and broadens out the thought process, so offering new horizons. In place of a short-sighted vision, concentrated only on the present, which makes this fleeting moment passing on earth the unique and fragile axis of the eternal future. Spiritism shows us that this life is nothing more than a link in the magnificent, harmonious assembly which is God's work. It also shows us the solidarity that joins together all the different existences of one being, and all beings of the same world, and all beings of all the worlds. It offers the base and the reason for universal fraternity, whereas the doctrine of the creation of the soul at birth of the body makes each creature a stranger to one another. This solidarity between parts of a whole explains what is inexplicable when only one of these parts is considered. This entirety would not have been possible to understand at the time of Christ, and for this reason he waited until later to make his knowledge known. So now they really take the time to bring it back to Spiritism and show that Spiritism offers these new horizons and these new thoughts, and these are following Jesus' words and Jesus' thoughts, but he didn't explain it so in depth because the people at the time couldn't understand. So he waited. He said, I'll wait for this knowledge, right? We'll keep this knowledge. And just like even the spirits still do with us, they say, oh, you're not advanced enough to know that yet. And maybe one day when we advance more, they'll come with more information for us. So the same way. So Jesus couldn't just be like, oh yeah, there's a future life, so you have to think of life this way. It wouldn't click with people. But now we have more understanding and more knowledge. So now these teachings can come, and we can better understand them and better interpret them and apply them to our lives. Because if Jesus said that at that time, people would have just shut him out, and they wouldn't, because they couldn't make sense of it because they weren't as evolved or as educated as we are now. So we need to strive to continue to educate ourselves so that we can get more of that knowledge, right? So that we can be ready for more of that knowledge that awaits us. And then the last little section in this chapter, chapter 2, is instructions from the spirits in earthly regality. So in earthly, like royalty, king. Who better than I to understand the truth of these words of our Lord? My kingdom is not of this world. When on earth I lost myself through pride. Who then can understand the total lack of value of the earthly kingdom if not I? What was I able to bring to me of my earthly regality? Nothing, absolutely nothing. And if I make my lesson more terrible, it did not even accompany me to my tomb. A queen amongst mankind, I thought to enter heaven as a queen. What a delusion, what a humiliation, when, instead of being received as a sovereign, I saw above me, a long way above me, those whom I had judged insignificant, and whom I had despised because they were not of noble blood. Oh, how I understand now that the bareness of honor and splendor so eagerly courted on earth. So this continues, but just to help explain a little bit so far, is this is written by a queen, right? She was a queen of France, it says later on, and she's saying that she thought, okay, when I die, I'm going to go to heaven and be treated as a queen because I've been a queen, right? And then when she gets to the spirit world, she realizes that there's people that were peasants that are now way above me, right? There's people that have so much more power than me, and she, as a queen, was not being treated as a queen, right? Because morally and intellectually, she was not at the level to be a quote-unquote queen. So now she's saying, on earth, right, you see, like, she was the queen, but, like, past the grave, like, she's saying, no, it wasn't like that. In order to win a place in this kingdom, it is necessary to show abnegation, humility, benevolence, and charity in its most celestial form. They do not ask you who you are or what position you occupied. Instead, they ask you what good you have done, how many tears you have dried. O Jesus, you said that your kingdom was not of this world, because it is necessary to suffer in order to reach heaven, and one cannot reach there by means of the steps to a throne. Only the most painful paths lead to it. Seek your path then, through the briars and thorns, and not amongst the flowers. So here she's saying that you can't just take the easy way out, and if you're just born into being a queen, then you're going to be a queen forever. You need to go through the challenges and face them and tackle them and be able to surpass them. And that's what makes you strong. That's what makes you powerful, right? To get through the tough times and get through them positively. Men and women hurry to and fro with the hope of acquiring earthly possessions, as if they would be able to keep them forever. Here, however, illusions disappear, and it is soon perceived that they have only been chasing shadows. Then it becomes apparent that the only real golden possessions, the only ones that can be made use of there in heavenly homes, the ones that can offer the possibility of entry, have been despised. Have pity on those who have not entered into heaven. Help them with your prayers, because prayer helps mankind approach the Most High. It is what links heaven and earth. Do not forget. A Queen of France. So that really sums it up, right? That she was a queen, and she thought, it's going to be easy. I'm a queen. What do you mean? I'm going to get to heaven and still be a queen. But no, it's not about your status. It's about what you do in your life, right? You're, like they said, how many tears you dried, how many people you helped. So that's what's important, and that's why Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world, because he didn't need to be a king of earth to be a king. He was still on top of the spirit world, but he didn't need that earthly status for that. So with that being said, we'll leave off there. Next week we'll start chapter 3. But before we leave off, I'd like to read our message from the Daily Book of Positive Quotations by Linda Picone for today's date, May 21st. This one's titled, Win-Win. Joint undertakings stand a better chance when they benefit both sides. We like to win, and so does everyone else. When we do things with other people, whether it's a project at work or planning a vacation with the family, things fall apart quickly if we don't figure out a way for everyone to get something out of it. To have a win-win situation, we have to understand that those whom we're dealing with want, and that means listening to what they have to say. I'm more likely to get what I want if I understand what others want and look for solutions that benefit us all. If at all you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything at all, feel free to email me at kardicradio4teens@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you right away. I'm Bia, and this has been Kardic Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening. This has been Kardic Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening.